Did you know that Lord of the Rings is racist? That's what The Guardian thought when, in 2002, they saw the film and weren't happy with the fact that J.R.R. Tolkien had been racist towards the orcs and his representation of them. They had to complain about it. Obviously. When I got home, I dug out my copy of Lord of the Rings from a box somewhere and found that there was worse to come. The Two Towers is a story of the battle between Isengard and Rohan in the good corner of the Riders of Rohan, aka the Whiteskins. I'm not sure where they're described as the Whiteskins anywhere. Yellow is their hair, bright are their spears, their leader is very tall. Yeah, it sounds like kind of Anglo-Saxon poetry. Almost like what Tolkien was basing Lord of the Rings off. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your tirade. Carry on. In the evil corner, the Orcs of Isengard, a grim, dark band. Swart, I don't even know what swart means. Slant-eyed and the dark wild men of the hills. So the good guys are white and the bad guys are, not human. That's what you mean. You don't mean black. You don't mean black. They're not human. They're an evil race that wants to eat humans for dinner. They literally, and you call them cannibalistic, but it's not that they are. I mean, they are, but that's not the problem that we have with them. I mean, I guess orcs can cannibalize themselves in Isengard all they want. The problem is they want to eat humans. This genetic determinism drives the plot in the most brutal manner. Right. White men are good, dark men are bad. They're not... Orcs worst of all. Well, they were invading with the orcs, weren't they? I mean, they had made an alliance with Sauron and Isengard to invade Gondor. I mean, Gondor didn't go out and attack them first, did they? While 10,000 orcs are massacred with a kind of Dungeons and Dragons version of biological warfare, the wild men left standing at the end of the battle are packed off back to their homes with nothing more than slapped wrists. Or maybe they should have massacred them too. Perhaps I'd better just come right out and say it. The Lord of the Rings is racist. It is soaked in the logic that race determines behaviour. Orcs are bred to be bad, and they have no choice. The evil wizard Saruman even tells us they are screwed up elves. Elves made bad by some kind of devilish genetic modification program. They deserve no mercy. Well, I mean, he just created them specifically to kill people. And so it does kind of seem that they have been bred, if you will, to actually just be a race of murderous savages. I mean, we didn't see anything about the orcs that seemed to be in any way redeemable. In what way could we reintegrate orcs into society? Naturally, the memes that came from this were amazing. Time magazine's The New Face of Gondor, how orcish immigrants are shaping Middle-earth's first multicultural society. As anti-orc sentiment rises after rising orc attacks on Middle-earth, Special Council convenes to talk about tackling anti-orc hate speech. Who gets to be a Gondorian? The eternal question. There's only one way the Shire should respond to the recent orc attacks. That is by carrying on exactly as before. Reminder that it's a small minority of orcs that are responsible for the attacks on Gondor. And the reason that these hit home so well, these memes, is because literally the progressive left are defending the orcs in Lord of the Rings. They're actually whining that Lord of the Rings is racist because the orcs appear to be portrayed as entirely evil. But in the defense of the people making Lord of the Rings, I don't know how you can describe these as anything but evil when their main goal seems to be destroy the realms of men and eat all the humans. I mean, I know I'm not familiar with manflesh cuisine, and I mean, I do love some foreign food myself, but even I have limits on the type of food that I'm going to eat. But I mean, you've got to remember, Gondor needs orc immigration to flourish as a progressive society. Because, be real, aren't orcs the true feminists after all? Which is what a science fiction writer complained about this week when talking to Wired magazine. They are still complaining that Lord of the Rings is racist towards orcs. So I guess orc posting is back on the menu, boys. American author Andy Duncan said that Tolkien depicted evil creatures such as orcs as worse than others, and that this had dire consequences for society. What? Are we honestly at the point where we can't depict an evil race of non-humans in fantasy without us relating them to black people or Muslims? Are we honestly doing that? Are we saying that that's the way things have to be? Is that the kind of future we want for sci-fi and fantasy writing? Is it really? I mean, do you remember that they ate the humans, Andy? He said, it's hard to miss the repeated notion in Tolkien that some races are just worse than others, or that some peoples are just worse than others. Okay, yeah, if you invent a fictional race that exists exclusively on either manflesh or the cannibalized flesh of their friends, yeah, I'm going to say that I'm going to make a moral judgment there. I'm really sorry. I'm going to suggest that perhaps these people are an existential threat to the human race, not just the human race, in fact, the hobbits, the elves, the dwarves, all of civilized Middle-earth is under threat from the cannibals. Yes, I would say that. I think that's fair. Don't you? It seems to me, in the long term, if you embrace this too much, it has dire consequences for yourself and society. Bravo, Andy. I can't believe someone finally noticed that if we sit there pathologizing, say, all Muslims as flesh-eating orcs, it might have a dire effect on people's perception of Muslims. Probably why the people who are making the orc memes were mocking you and not the Muslims. It's like you don't realize that the orc posting memes are actually a mockery of the progressive left. It's like you don't understand that this kind of inbuilt desire to defend everything, regardless of how awful and how untenable a prospect it would be for any kind of society, you have to defend it. You have to say, no, that is just as good as what they are actually invading and destroying. That is exactly the same. If you make any difference and distinction there, then you're some kind of bigot. You don't want to get eaten by orcs. Pfft, what are you, a racist? And I'm not joking when I say they will literally defend cannibalistic, man-eating non-humans who invade in a fantasy book and try to kill all of the humans. You know, the genocidal intentions they have for the humans are only stopped by the humans being able to fight them off. But Andy will defend this. I can easily imagine that a lot of these people that were doing the Dark Lord's bidding were doing so out of simple self-preservation and so forth. That's right. It's not that they're pleased that meat's back on the menu, it's that they didn't really want to eat the Hobbit, the Dark Lord was just going to make them. A lot of these creatures were raised out of the earth and had not a great deal of choice in the matter of what to do. I have this very complicated sense of the politics for that. Okay, Andy. It's a fantasy story about a wizard that creates an evil race of orcs that eat men. I am sure that your intuitions of the politics of this are totally legitimate, and it's not you projecting your dumbass progressive politics onto it. It's easier to demonize one's opponents than to try and understand them and try to understand the complex forces that are leading to, for example, refugees trying to cross the southern border of the US legally or illegally. That's right. Hondurans. They're basically orcs from Lord of the Rings. They're basically being led by Sauron, and they intend to eat all the people in the United States. It's easier to build walls and demonize them as scum. Well, are they cannibalistic? Do they have any intention of eating US citizens? I don't think we actually need to demonize the Hondurans. They just have to go back. They don't live in the United States. They don't have a right to live in the United States. They're not applying legally. They're trying to get in using force. They have to go back.